Multiplying by proper and improper fractions. Our essential question is, when multiplying by a fraction, how do you know if the product, remember the product is the answer, will be greater or lesser than the factor? So first thing we need to think about is if a fraction is greater or lesser than 1. Proper fractions are fractions where the numerator, the number on top, is lesser than the denominator, the number on bottom. For example, 3 over 4, because 3 is less than 4. Proper fractions are all less than 1. Improper fractions are like this, like 5 over 2, where the numerator, the number on top, is greater than the denominator, the number on bottom. All improper fractions are greater than the number 1. So let's fill in the blanks. Fractions whose numerators are lesser than the denominators are called proper fractions. Proper fractions are less than 1. Fractions whose numerators are greater than denominators are called improper fractions. Improper fractions are greater than 1. So let's talk about products. Remember, the product is the answer to a multiplication problem. So in both of these problems, I have the number 2. Remember, the number 2, if I want to write it as a fraction, is 2 over 1. So when I multiply by a proper fraction, the product is going to be smaller than the first factor, smaller than 2. So I take 2. If I multiply it by a proper fraction, the answer is going to be smaller than 2. If I multiply it by an improper fraction, the answer is going to be bigger than 2. So 2 over 1 times 3 over 4, we get 6 over 4. And when we divide and simplify, we get 1 1/2. 1 1/2 is smaller than 2. And this was a proper fraction, 3 over 4. So when I take 2 and I multiply it by a proper fraction, where the number on top is smaller, the number itself, the answer, is going to get smaller. When I multiply by an improper fraction, like 5 over 2, my product is going to be greater than my first factor. So the answer is going to be bigger than the first factor. Here's an example. 5 times 1/2 would be greater or lesser than 5. Well, half, 1 is smaller than 2. It's a proper fraction, so my answer would be less than 5. 7 times 5 over 2 would be greater or lesser than 7. Well, 5 over 2, the 5 is bigger than 2, so it's an improper fraction, which means that the answer would be greater than 7. And this is the summary slide where you answer the essential question.